Hey guys, welcome to Midnight Auto Repair. I'm Josh. I actually have my cameraman Randy holding the camera for me. So we are going to start part 2 of this particular revival. We're working on this Ford Windstar again. You saw in the last video, we got it to start and we got it running. It didn't run really well, so we're going to go through, we're going to put plug wires on it, and we're going to start assessing the motor, and we're going to try to figure out kind of why it was parked, honestly. We know that the serpentine belt had slung off and it had whipped a bunch of the wires. They all still look connected and they're not touching, so we're going to go with it for now. That'll be a different video where we kind of delve into the electronics. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to do plug wires on this. I'm going to kind of show you the dirty on it. So stay with me and we'll keep going on this. Alright guys, so I've been assessing the situation here. The engineers out there, I wanted to get on a knee and have a conversation with you about some of the ways that you guys put stuff together. I mean, I don't know how many elbows you got, but I know I'm only blessed with the one here, so we're going to have to take the upper intake off this vehicle to get to the rear 3 plug wires and coil pack. So I'm going to find a way to bring you along and get the camera mounted so I can give you a real good view of it. But I kind of wanted to bring that up. The way that things are packaged on some of these cars, I'll never get. So if you got answers for me or you feel the same way I do, leave me a comment in the comment section and kind of share some of your ugly stories of packaging and some of the pain in the rear ways it takes to get to stuff. So I'm going to position the camera and I'll bring you guys right back. Alright guys, so we're now kind of looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly of this. So it's going to kind of be a halfway how-to and a halfway for your own entertainment watching me try not to sound like the soundtrack from Jerry Springer. So I'm going to try to keep the obscenity to a minimum because I kind of want this to be a family-friendly show. But what we're going to start with here is I've already disconnected the intake and the mass airflow sensor on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the throttle position sensor and the idle air control valve. Sometimes they think these things kind of awkward. There we go. And just take all that and we'll roll it out of the way. And then we're going to come in here. Looks like there are 2 bolts that hold this bracket on to hold the throttle. I'm going to disconnect the return spring. We're going to just move that out of the way, and there's a little slide clip here for the cruise control that we're going to pick up. We're going to disconnect. It just picks straight up. Don't try to pull it forward. Just wiggle it a little bit and pick it straight up. It'll come off. And then we will come around here, take the throttle cable, wind it over, and there we go. The throttle is disconnected. Let me go to my tool set here. And we're going to take an 8mm ratchet and get in here, loosen this bracket off. Now, I told you before, my other videos, always, always, always make sure you put the bolts exactly where you know they're at. I like to use the cowl because a lot of these cowls have a little serration in them. So they kind of help keep bolts from rolling around into places that you don't want them. So unbolt this and you see that bracket now starting to drop out of the way. So we're gonna just run this out, and once I start getting into the meat of the things, I'll kind of put this on fast forward. That way you guys don't have to sit here and watch me for half an hour do it, because some of this will be painfully boring. But I wanted to bring you in on the high point of disconnecting the throttle and not breaking that cruise control cable. And then over here we also found too a pretty massive vacuum leak, because this little 90-degree elbow here, take a gentle twist and pull, and you can see that over the course of time that fuel vapor and just general age has caused this thing to split and get really gummy, like really soft. So we're gonna go through there, and I know there's a couple on the back side for the wiring harness there, and this is going to be one of those ones where you get to practice your mechanics yoga and try to lay down here a little bit and feel your way through. We'll get these bolts free, that way when we start pulling this intake manifold out of the way, yet again, like I said, I don't know how many joints you engineers have in your elbows and fingers, but I must be sorely lacking compared to what you guys are operating with to get to some of these angles. So it's kind of a two-handed ordeal. When you reach around, if you're working on one of these still, first off, my hat goes off to you. Second, you'll feel where these bolts are on the intake. And that one, I'm going to have to back the vehicle up and find it later, because it decided to go free agent. You'll have that from time to time too. So, coming around, feeling our way to our next stop here, which there'll be another 8mm bolt back here. I can feel it. And just kind of gently run that one out. I can feel the local spider population has welcomed itself into the back side of this engine bay, because I can feel them hanging up on me. So if you're faint of heart or you're scared of insects, you're probably not going to be the one reaching back on one of these. Although if you drive it daily, probably not a big issue. But once they sit a while, you get critters. Creepy crawlies and critters. They just come with the territory. So I'm still reaching back there trying to get this other bolt out. There, I can actually feel that one. There. We've released that harness. There's another one of the bolts. I'm going to go and grab my bigger 8mm. And by 8, we're also calling it 5/16, because it now officially self-identifies as that. And we're just going to loosen the bolts here up just a bit. I'm going to have to change equipment. Get just a little shorter for these ones underneath the cowl here. And crack them all free. They shouldn't be super tight, and if you go gently, if they feel like they're real tight or they feel like they're going to snap, stop and just kind of, what I do is tighten it just a little more to get it moving forward, and sometimes that breaks the corrosion, and then you just go backwards and it'll help release it. So these are actually coming along pretty good. I really still do question engineers at Ford for some of their positioning of this stuff. Because it's just at weird angles, you know? You guys know what I'm talking about. So, we got them all cracked free, and now we're just going to take the socket and extension and just kind of thumb them out until they're loose. Alright guys, so it looks like we got all the bolts off. We're gonna give her a gentle wiggle, and got a couple vacuum lines back here that are attached, so we're gonna give them a twist, try to get them broke free from the years of crud holding them. And then this one here, I'm going to need, actually what we're going to do is we're going to go for the shortcut on this one. We're going to pop the check valve out of the booster. That way we can just take this and drag it straight out. And now we have access to our upper intake plenum. And this is one of Ford's fancy ideas for their injection. We got injection that comes directly down into the port on this, but we've also got these EGR tubes that also run everything around as well. And man, them seals are looking pretty haggard. So those might be next on the list, but now we actually get access to the back side of the motor, so I can reach around and get to the plug wires on the back side. Plug wires are the same. They actually make a special wrench for these, so if you give them a twist and pull, 9 times out of 10 they come off. And this is why we're replacing it, because it's leaking electricity. So every time this plug would fire, it'd also arc off. So we are going to give this a quick tug and see what wire wiggles on the back side there, and now we're meeting in the middle. So we're going to come around. Fords have these little weird clip on them, so you just pinch the clip and we weasel this one back out. So the rest of this is just repetition of this. So what we're going to do is, we've got brand new plug wires here. We're going to pull them out. I like to do these one at a time, that way you don't cross anything up. You can take them. Sometimes they're zip tied together, sometimes they're just kind of folded over. Straighten them out. And what I do is I usually try to lay them over the core support here, and then we just grab a wire and try to figure out how long we need. So looks like we got our first length right here. So we're going to come around, take this guy here, get rid of the old one because it's doing nobody any good for anything. And we are going to do exactly like they did before and weasel all this under here and out of the way. Double and triple joint your arm there. And we'll come around and we will pop this one on there. Now you guys can use dielectric grease. I just don't happen to have any on me today. But mostly this is just a repetition, and then I'll kind of come back to you when I get around to the back and try to explain the finer points of doing all this stuff and not being able to see anything. So yeah, just keep watching. Or go grab a cold snack, one of the two. Either way, I'm fine with it. I'll be here. Alright guys, that was the front side 3. And then we'll actually try to be nice since we have access to the factory spark plug wire clip here. We will even try to sneak that in there and just really get fancy with the deal here. I'll try to keep them off the fan. So clip's broken, but it'll at least retain them. So there's your front 3. We definitely know that these ones are nice and new. We won't be leaking any electricity out of them. Now we get to have the real fun. Get in the back side here. We are going to reach under. We're going to feel for the first one. Try to twist it as best as you can. And wiggle. And, well, sometimes these old ones, they're Bluetooth. That's what happens when you get a very enterprising mouse in here. Because for some reason, they seem to think these things are a delicacy. So, see? You can see where the rats and mice have been really eating on this wire. We got mouse chews here and everything. So, this is why we were doing it. I was the other day watching a light show back there, and that would explain why. So we're still going to try to hold this together-ish and assume that we know the length, and then we're going to try to find the wire that may closest represent what we're going. So I think this guy's looking like he fits the bill. And then it's just going to be a repeat where we kind of feel back here, get it connected onto the coil pack. Make sure it's well settled on there, and just gently lock it back. Now normally we'd be doing plugs to go with this, but I actually want to make sure this thing is even remotely good. So you reach back there, we'll feel for the spark plug, which I can feel, and then on these you'll feel a little clip as it connects on. And we'll move over to the next one here. And give it a little wiggle and a pop. Next, wiggle this one, see where it's coming from. As a mechanic, you develop a third sight where you start seeing things and they just start making sense. You know what you're looking at even though you can't see what you're looking at. And last plug wire. Wow, this one must have been vegan formula, because not a chew. And one last wire. And we will take this guy here. And this one we'll just connect back here. Grab some of that garbage out of there. From the mouse party. And just gently try to route it around, and bada bing, bada boom. There, all these suckers are locked in there. So now we just reverse the process and start putting it back together. So well, there should be a PCV valve right there. That's yeah, about that. Ain't nothing there. So we will cross that bridge at a later date. Till then, feed this in and around. So once we get back there, we can connect it, and we are going to just try and drop this thing in here. Then just feel until you get a couple of these guys threaded in, because once you get a couple threaded in, it means you're usually in a pretty good alignment to start getting the rest of them going. Alright, so coming back around, what we're going to do is, I always start with the outside one here and the outside one here. Just give them a little snug. Like I've shown you in videos before, I usually just use 2 fingers. If it starts feeling too tight, chances are it is. And then we just cross around, back and forth here. And what we're doing is we're evenly distributing torque down this intake manifold. And since it is plastic, you don't want to over tighten it, otherwise things go horribly wrong. I'm sure for a vehicle this vintage, it's probably a hard one to come by now. But like I said, usually just go 2 fingers, and if it feels good and tight, then we kind of call that good enough. We're not picking up the motor by this plastic intake. Now I'm going to do a little box tighten where I come around in a square. Alrighty. So we are going to go through and we're going to do a reversal here and start putting things back together. So we're going to at least try to get one of these bolts back in this intake, just to hold this harness up and out of the way. And I'm probably going to go for the one I can easiest reach, because I'm not going to lie to you guys, it's less than amusing angle they give you here. So we're gonna feel where our little stud is for the bolt. Now we're gonna feel where our hole is here. We're gonna stick it through and just use our other finger to guide the tip of it into its little adjoining area. And just try to get on there straight. There we go. Yeah, I know the other bolt. It's somewhere in the grass. I will find it when I back this thing up. But that'll be a different video, because we still need tires and we still need to really assess this thing. But for now, I wanted to bring you in on the job of doing these wires, because I knew this was going to be less than a fun job. It really wasn't that bad, but once you've done stuff like this several times, it all starts making a lot more sense. But even for you beginners out there, don't get discouraged. Alright, take our cable, and you'll see where there's a little cutout there, and just wiggle it until it goes back in. Drop this guy back down on its little connection, And we're going to grab the throttle body here. Start thumbing in our bolts. Get alignment on it. And we'll grab our 8mm socket and ratchet here and just again, no need to tighten these down to 1,000,000 foot-pounds, just good and snug. Come back around, reconnect our throttle return spring. We can come here now and grab some of our connections and start connecting them back in, whether they want to or not. The older these things get, the less that everything wants to stay where it's supposed to stay. So the other nice thing is all these connections are different, so you're not going to run into a situation where you'll end up with one that doesn't fit because all the connectors are one off in that area. You won't be able to plug a wrong one in. And if you do, you've probably been forcing it too hard. Insert joke that I can't say. Alright, give this guy here a quick little smackaroo, because we're not replacing that today. We have our connection here for our mass airflow and our boot. We got a PCV breather back here that goes into a hole that's kind of sort of missing half its rubber grommet, but really don't matter as long as you get it in there to some degree. Bring this guy over here. These ones are always kind of fun just because you have to align it on there just perfectly. Otherwise it doesn't want to go on and stay on. So with these, there's alignment tabs that you're supposed to be able to push through and get all this on. But yet again, some person with a sense of humor really likes to make us mechanics work for certain things, and there we go. Idle air and mass airflow. Plug that right back where it came off, and now gotta find a plug for this port for now, because like I showed you, this elbow before is pretty well smoked. So give me a minute, I shall return. Alright guys, so necessity is the mother of invention, they say. Well, I necessitated making a spark plug boot now a vacuum plug. So what we're going to do is, we're going to give this thing a jump start. Or at least start it up and see what happens. And that battery's got some voltage, but not enough. So we are going to use the Monte Carlo support vehicle. And we're gonna do a little resuscitation. Alright guys, I'm gonna bring it back because, well, my eyes are burning from the amount of smoke that this thing likes to distribute everywhere. So, none of us actually have an idea of why this was parked, because the gentleman, Jim, that I've been helping out here, and who's been giving me projects to do, he's never actually heard this vehicle run. So we know that the exhaust is pretty well shizened. That tire decided it no longer wanted to be part of the party anymore. And it's still got a horrid misfire. But we are trying to figure out why it's running like it does. So, these things are notorious for head gasket failures. And we are starting to see potential signs that this had a failed head gasket at one point or another. So, I don't know if there will be a part 3. This is part 2. I mean, it's technically running better than it did. And I really hate to leave you on that bombshell, but yeah. Sometimes you can't win them all. I'm gonna talk to Jim. We're gonna assess the situation and see if maybe it's worth putting the money into, if he wants to. We have started noticing though, since we moved it, that the rear camber on that back wheel is not doing too well, and we want to get this up in the air and see maybe what could be all going on underneath it, because we know the exhaust is non-existent. But can't win them all, guys. But it was well worth the shot. So give me a minute here and I'll wrap up with you. Alright guys, so we have found some things. I'm actually going to pull a dipstick out of the Monte Carlo because first I want to show you. That's what good clean oil looks like on a dipstick. You know, a little dark, but not terrible. And whenever you heard somebody refer to a blown head gasket as making a chocolate milkshake, I'm going to show you why. And I know this isn't the right length dipstick, but this is for instructional purposes only. We're going to come down here, we're going to stick it, and we're going to pull it out. And that's why we call it a chocolate milkshake, because it is nasty, brown. Yeah, there's coolant in there. Coolant and water. So we now have a good idea why this vehicle is parked. Like I said, guys, you can't win them all, but in this case, we had fun getting it started and nothing really ventured, nothing gained. In all reality, I've spent about 40 bucks in materials just to see this. And I'm going to talk to Jim, the gentleman who actually owns this vehicle, and we're going to see if it's something he really wants to tear into and do head gaskets on, or if we just want to let it go the way it is, or just park it back in the back corner, which is most likely going to be the honest case. But I appreciate you guys hanging with me. This is Josh with Midnight Auto Repair. I hope you have a wonderful day. Like, share, and subscribe, and drop a comment in the comment section below, guys. Come on, feel free to talk. I welcome it. So, have a good day.